All right, ladies and gentlemen, how is everybody? Hope you're all well. I am here with Mr. Stephen Gibbs, teacher at Kariong Mountains High School. He's come on, been lucky enough to get him on to give us a bit of perspective about what's happening in the school system at the moment. I, for one, know that I have a kid at home homeschooling, and it is an absolute nightmare. And I'm imagining that it's an absolute nightmare for teachers at the moment, especially ones that haven't closed where they still have kids and they're expected to teach the kids in the classroom and at home as well. So I thought we'd try and give all the parents out there a little bit of anxiety relief, Steve-O, because a lot of people are putting themselves under a lot of pressure. But before we do that, how the hell are you?
Yeah, going well, mate. It's good to see you. Good to see you from your face with all these lockdown measures in place, or social distancing. Yeah, going well.
Going well, mate. Doing our best. Thanks heaps for coming on. So how have you found it, mate? Obviously, as I just said, lots of pressure on teachers and parents at the moment. How are you hanging in there?
Yeah, mate, it's difficult. It's a whole new space for us teachers, and I mean, we are using familiar instruments, things like Google Classroom we do use, but that's obviously integrated with our core business of being in the classroom and interacting with students. And I bet my bottom dollar, if you'd ask 99% of teachers, if not all of them, what the best part of their job is, it's ripping in the classroom. And having that face-to-face contact, which obviously now we can't really do. I mean, there are schools that are still open, and provided that the size of the classroom and the number of kids are there, then maybe they are still teaching. And I know that is happening across the state and the country, but it really is difficult. At Kariong, we've gone to, mostly fully online. We've sort of got, a couple of kids here that either have internet access issues or, are kids of essential workers. So obviously, with our arrangement in New South Wales, they're more than welcome to be here. But yeah, there's not too many of us here. But it's a new environment. It's totally different, and we're just trucking on and doing the best we can.
Yeah, I think when stuff like this happens, it's easy for people under stress to heap blame or heap unrealistic expectations on people involved. We know, we've seen the shit on the news about the nurses copying it from people. Absolutely disgusting, but that's how people react under stress. I see a little bit.
Yeah, that's completely.
Yeah, and I think the same for teachers, mate. I'm sure you guys, I don't know if you've experienced it personally, but I'm sure there's some people copping some flack because of perceived lack of preparedness or what's going on. You pretty much answered my next question, though. How prepared were you guys? I mean, do you ever get trained in digital learning anyway, or is this completely new, mate? Is this a complete throw the balls in the air and see where they land type thing?
Yeah, well, the platforms, like I said, some of them are we have been trained in before, and different levels of expertise across different staff. Things like Zoom haven't really been functional, from my experience, too much. There may be other teachers that have used it, but I certainly haven't. So a little bit of that throw the ball up analogy, I guess. It just hit us. It hit everyone. It hit every person in the community. As a profession, it's hit us. Like a brick wall, I guess, run into a brick wall because, we weren't necessarily prepared to go. And essentially it really is fully online. I know from my experiences, like I said, there's 2 kids here, mate, and I've got to now interact with 30 kids in a Year 7 class with no face-to-face interaction. I can schedule a Zoom meeting, but some kids don't have access to internet. You got to send hard copies out. It's trying to juggle all the balls at once, mate, and it can be quite difficult. I understand that is my job, and as a profession, I guess me and my colleagues, our job is to work out how we best do that moving forward. Because, like we've heard, the lockdown, or I use that word because it's the most appropriate, is going to continue well into next term by the looks of it. So we've just got to work that out, and everyone, and not just for us, but as a community, we've got to be patient with each other, because this is only just a small aspect of living. Education is obviously really important, but people have got other things to worry about. They've got family members that may be sick. elderly grandparents. There's more than just education, but for us as a profession, we've got to work out how we can do it the most efficiently and to help everyone out the best we can.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately or unfortunately, people place education so highly on the list of essential things that, you'd like to think everyone would take a step back and a deep breath and just sort of look out for each other. And that includes you guys, that includes anyone. I mean, obviously real estate's not anywhere near on the list of essential services of teaching, but we've had to completely recalibrate the way we do things, completely change the way we're servicing our clients. And you guys are going through the same thing. So everyone just needs to understand that and take a deep breath. What's the general consensus feeling amongst your teaching fraternity, mate? Is everyone hanging on a percentage level? Are more people okay than not? Are you happy to still be at school interacting with kids? I mean, there's a massive movement to lock everything down. Are you guys feel, I don't want you to say anything too controversial, mate, or get yourself in the shit, but are you guys generally okay to still be there interacting with the kids?
I think at the end of the day, mate, that is our job. And would it be wrong to say we had concerns about the social distancing? I think it is improved now that this push from the Premier has been made to potentially keep your kids at home unless it is required for them to go to school. That's made social distancing a lot easier in the classroom. 2 weeks ago, say, or even at the start of last week, we had 27 kids in a room that's 10 metres by 10 metres. I mean, you can do the math. If you can social distance in that space, then good luck to you. You're a smarter person than both of us. But for now, we're happy that the conditions are okay. And like I said, we're lucky enough and very lucky at Kariong Mountains High School to have a lot of time to prepare for this. So I try and engage in the community and wider community, Facebook pages and groups and so on. And there are a lot of schools and a lot of my colleagues who are struggling, and I really feel for them. Whether that be because they still have a lot of kids turning up and they've still got to do that face-to-face, like you mentioned before, and then prepare for online learning. And that would be tough. I think primary school teachers and early childhood teachers are absolute godsends. They're absolute saints. They've got more patience than I do. And I can't imagine having a group of 6-year-olds or 7-year-olds. And I think you're going to get to this in a second. That would require parental input. Or kids, children with special needs and disabilities, there needs to be some adult or older person interaction with that student. Otherwise, they're not going to access a Google Classroom with information on it, no matter how hard you try.
Yeah, it's well, we will get to it in a minute, but I've only got one person in the classroom here, mate, and it's absolute nightmare. So, something that people have overlooked, mate, especially I feel from the crowd that are saying just shut all the schools down, our kids should be at home, is the at-risk kids, the kids that need protection. There's a lot of children who, regardless of what was going on at home, used to get 6 or 8 hours a day of respite and be able to come to school and get away from it. That's something that, we've already seen domestic violence increase. We've already seen. That's why the government's thrown so much money at it. But we can't forget the kids in that too, yeah? There's a lot of kids that come to you guys just to get away from it.
Absolutely, mate. And that's probably the soul-crushing thing of being a teacher is that that when some kids leave your care during the day, that what they're going home to is not as perhaps pleasant as it is at school. And I guess from a school perspective and the department, we're just keeping up our normal sort of child protection measures. If we do have concerns, and that may be the case for certain students, then just contacting them. There's numerous apps that I know you mentioned domestic violence, and just on a broader community, there's apps that people have developed that if they are stuck at home, they can, contact it, might disguise itself as ordering a pizza or something, and they can, so if there was an abusive partner or something like that, they can use those, which is great. From a school perspective, we've still got our child protection guidelines in place. If there is any sort of at-risk or significant harm issues, then we would deal with those. Our welfare team, wellbeing team's excellent. I would imagine that's the case around the state and country with them checking in. They do calls, our school counsellor checking in. And the biggest part is we've made it a safe place here, not just for essential workers, but for those students who perhaps home isn't the happiest of places. It has been communicated to the school community that they are more than welcome to come into school to complete their work. And that's obviously not a great number of kids. So, it's not such an issue, but it is definitely a safe space here, and they're more than welcome, just the same as the kids with the essential workers. So, I guess that's how we've attacked that one.
Did you guys seek out those at-risk kids when this first started happening and let them know that, or is it sort of a wait for them to come to us approach? Or I'm guessing all schools would be a little bit different, but was that part of the immediate thinking? I imagine when this first happened, I know myself, it hit like a ton of bricks and some bits could get overlooked. Is that something you went straight for, to reach out to those people?
And that thought to go straight to... Yeah, well, that thought to go straight to, how are we going to deliver lesson content? And I'm a big proponent of the student is a whole person. Lesson and like we said before, educations and lessons and that sort of stuff is just one aspect of being. So our wellbeing team was straight onto it, mate. Reaching that, just lending that hand out there, just if it was needed. And quite often you'll find that there was contact, or there is contact that gets made by those at-risk students. And I'll be honest, we're lucky enough for that not to be the case. There's a couple of kids at school with internet issues and, like I said, essential services. But for now, fingers crossed, everybody is safe and that contact will continue to be maintained to make sure that's the case.
Cool. Yeah, good to hear, mate. Good to hear. You're a good man. So, all right, now let's move on to my favourite topic. So I've got a 13-year-old kid who his mother tells me he started year 7 this year. His mother tells me he's been quite independent at home, doing all his own schoolwork. She's tried to catch him out a couple of times, but the bugger appears to be doing it.
Yep.
I have an 8-year-old at home who, if there was a complete opposite of everything I just said, is that. I guess, you're in the high school space, so I guess there would be more kids who are a little bit more independent on a whole. There would still be some who struggle. You would, back in my day, mate, you're absolutely Buckley's and none of getting me to do any work at home, schoolwork. So
I'd do the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
And I know, mate, in my household, it's causing a bit of stress, a bit of friction. Isaac doesn't appear to be happy. Crystal's definitely not happy because they're starting to butt heads. The last thing that should be happening in a situation like this is relationships getting friction instead of love. But part of it, and there was a question she asked me just before I came in here. I said, is there anything you want me to ask Gibbsy? And she said, what is the expectation as a general rule? What is the expectation from teachers of, number one, parents, and then number two, the kids? Where are you guys? What are you expecting from us? I think she's feeling a lot of expectation, as in Isaac's got to get back to school the same way he left, which, we're in a position where we're both working full time. Crystal's running our business from home and trying to teach year 3 at the same time. So, firstly, of the parents, what are you guys expecting as a general rule?
Mate, and it's a difficult question to answer because, like I said, I am in a high school setting where the majority of kids are more independent than a primary school, and that just comes with the age as you get older. So it's difficult to comment, and I'd love to help you out with the primary schools. All I can say, and I said this to you last night when we were having a chat, just catching up, I'll hope that parents don't think in some way that they're letting their kids down if they can't fulfill every lesson requirement, or the student here, if the student doesn't get all their work done. That the approach that we've sort of taken to start with, and I think this may be the case across schools, is we've sort of just got to get to these holidays, mate. And it's going to be a busy one for teachers because, we'll have a bit of a break, but term 2 is a new day. It's how do we do this in the long term? And it's going to be difficult to get those lessons out. Like I said before, you said you've got an 8-year-old. That's difficult. they're not self-sufficient learners. They're not independent learners. So it does require some intervention. And as loving parents out there in the community, they're going to be doing that. They're going to want to help their kids. But the reality is that's stressful. So I guess back to your question, the expectation would be that just support your child. If they cannot do the work without parental assistance, then perhaps that might be a conversation that you may need to have with the teacher or for the student and increase that independence. Hey, Johnny, would you be able to have, can you ask your teacher next time you have a Zoom meeting or send them an email or something like that, just to know that it is stressful. And as teachers, mate, we're well aware that high school, I think we escape it a little bit, but I massively feel for parents of younger kids and for my colleagues in primary schools, because that is so tricky. The relationships they develop with kids in the classroom and being able to be there concurrently, like I think they call it synchronous learning, is massive. And so just let's take a step back. And like I said, it's life, it's education, and we can place that on a pedestal all we like, but really we've got to get through this as individuals, as families, as a community. And if that means we don't get lesson 3 out of the 3 lessons done, or we don't do worksheet 7, 8, 9, well, so be it. They may get done eventually, they may not. Yeah, we've just got to sort of take it for what it is, I think, mate. I hope that does answer your question. I can't really
No, mate.
Try not to speak for primary school teachers. I just feel for them. And like I said, mate, I don't have kids, but I do feel for you in the sense that a lot of parents are working and trying to balance to trying to be a teacher, which they aren't. And I don't think we're, as teachers, not expecting them to be, but it's inevitable that younger kids are not going to be able to be self-sufficient learners. It's a difficult thing. They've never been trained to do that before.
Yeah, mate, I think, well, you have answered the question, because the expectation is just do your best. And the worst thing a parent can do is beat themselves up because they're not a bloody school teacher. Now, should that mean that, we're in a situation where for the first week Isaac's been throwing a lot of tantrums to get out of doing any schoolwork? I think that's just because he's a bloody clever kid, and he knows that if he bungs it on enough, Mum's going to stop at some point and let him be. We can't let that rule the roost either. Here's a time where kids still need discipline and still need, if anything, mate. I think there's an opportunity here for kids to come out of this with far greater skills and life skills than they were ever going to get. The adversity, they're going through adversity themselves. That's something everyone's got to remember. Parents, I think, need to check in with their kids, see how they're going, see what their thoughts on this whole coronavirus is, or Kaboba virus, as my 4-year-old calls it. How are they handling but yeah, they still need to be educated. But if it is going
absolutely,
you can't.
And I think we had this discussion yesterday. You said, I'm not worried about not getting it completed. It's the stress that it's causing and the educational progression of kids. And like I said, that's why this time now is so important for us as teachers and educators to work out what we're really going to do long term, because this may be 3 months, it may be longer, who knows. But it is really, really important to work out what's if each stage, so primary school, high school, how do we facilitate learning and make sure that it is effective, and make sure that it's not creating undue stress for parents, because that's not fair. Maybe it might be a case of we're just doing the best that we can. We're trying to get some material out at the moment. If it can be done, it can be done. If it can't, well, yeah, that's what the next sort of X amount of weeks are to work out.
Yeah, I guess the holidays couldn't come at a better time for you guys, just to let you step back and get a bit of clarity, a bit of clear headspace. Has there been, one of my concerns as a parent in my situation is I've got an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old. They don't get to hang out with their friends anymore. Now for Indy, the 4-year-old, she's grown about 3 years in a week. She's talking like Isaac. The conversations are way more adult, if you want to use that word in air quotes. But I worry for Isaac, who's on the flip side of that, is only getting to hang out with a 4-year-old. has there been any thought put into
Yeah.
the social development of kids? Because that, and when we talk about life skills and, how, let's look 6 months down the track. Okay. We're probably looking at a 6-month thing. How are kids who haven't been in a social setting for 6 months, how are kids that have only been able to hang out with younger siblings or older siblings going to be able to assimilate back in? Have you guys put any thought into how we can manage that?
It's a ripper question, mate, and that's why I think all the different departments within the education system or within each school, so for our school, like we said, that wellbeing component is so important. What we do here is we obviously have years 7 through 12, and we have a daily check-in with the year advisor. So we mentioned before about child protection in terms of teacher protection. We have 2 people, 2 staff members on that daily check-in. We've had pretty good response from that. I think we had 50 out of 70 kids log on to the daily Zoom in year 8. So I do the year 8 one with the year 8 advisor. We check in. If we sort of structure it so we get all the daily notices out, if you like. This is what you should be doing for the timetable today. Make sure you're looking after yourself, healthy, say hi to your family, have a joke, do some exercise. And then they've probably got about 10 minutes, and they start telling each other jokes, and they said, oh, how cool is this thing we saw on the news last night, or what we saw on YouTube. So they're not getting face-to-face contact, but it's the next best thing. And it really is. It's like a jungle in there, mate. There's 50 kids talking and be quiet. I'm trying to tell Jaden something, or be quiet, So that mute button's really handy on Zoom for me. But in answer to your question, there's a little bit of face-to-face contact on Zoom. They obviously have their social networking. I'm sure they all have Facebook and Snapchat, which does that solve the complete socialization issue? No. And we both know it can cause issues. But there are some things which we're working on as a school to see, daily challenges. I know the PE faculty and wellbeing have put through like a daily burpee challenge, a scavenger hunt where they go through the house and find different things and post a picture up and stuff. So it is, that social aspect is definitely being considered. How effective that is, well, I guess time will tell when this whole situation is over, mate.
Has there been any liaising with anyone from a psychological standpoint on that? Like, have you guys been given any guidelines on how often the kids do need to see each other, even if it is only on Zoom? Or no, this is probably all stuff that will come during the holidays, mate, and as we move into this. I'm just wondering where it's at the moment. I'm sure there's be a lot of welfare or psychologist type people who would have an opinion on how much human to human, in air quotes, even if it is on Zoom, kids need. Have you heard anything about that like that?
In terms of from above, not really. It's sort of been focused on the learning side of things. We're lucky, and on schools are lucky to have access to a school counsellor. We're obviously trained in that area, and teachers as well. So they've got a fairly good balance of both, mental, physical, and health and learning as well. So we're guided by that. The wellbeing team, obviously head teacher, wellbeing, that sort of stuff. That's just, we're just using the resources that we have, mate, and we can only listen to the best advice and hope that the training and expertise of those people is enough to get us through, and I'm sure it will be. And any advice, any ideas from kids, if they see something or see another school doing it, then just let us know, because like you said, it is super important. And I'm sure, like you said as well, that there will be more advice as we tick the learning box, which often happens initially. Then we'll start to consider more these other areas.
Yeah, awesome, man. Yeah, I was just honestly just checking in, not trying to put you on the spot. A lot of people
No.
want to know where it's at,
mate.
and
yeah,
they can't underestimate, I think, to bring awareness to it, and can't underestimate that your kids are now isolated as well. I mean, I got no mates, mate. I sit in the cam cave and talk to myself all bloody day, so I'm all right. But kids especially are social creatures, and the impact it's going to have on them, before we worry too much about whether they can multiply 4 billion by 876,000, let's make sure that their mental health is... Did you just do the maths then? I just saw you do the maths.
I was trying. I can't do it. I'm not. I did try.
Nah. Mate,
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And they are social creatures. So, I mean, one of my big philosophies is that we train people to be members of society and good members of society at that. Education, like I said, is really important. Um, but if you can't function as a member of society, and we're going to see this, I really do think we're going to see this. And like you said, kids are going to have to be resilient, and they're going to have to be empathetic towards, there's nothing wrong with a parent and a kid having a conversation. How does mum and dad feel? Because that empathy is really important, and it's an important skill in life. So conversations, checking in on your mate, I know I'm a teacher, but checking in on everyone and family, it's really important in this time. I know mental health and, the Black Dog Institute stuff for you is massive. So yeah, that's, it is for us as well.
On a lighter note, mate, have you heard any, you get 50 kids in a room on one Zoom. Have you heard any cracker one-liners? How are the kids handling with the coronavirus? I mean, I had Isaac on here the other day talking about Donald Trump and his wall and how it was a good thing now because it keeps out the Mexicans with coronavirus. Have you heard any ones that are stuck in your head and you've gone, fuck, that's all right?
Mate, it's probably a testament to the school that the kids have been I think they've been so respectful, they've forgotten how to play up, which is really good.
I'm sending you Isaac, brother.
Yeah, no worries. But the reason I like being a teacher, and I tell my kids this, is that you see something different every day. And I've heard some absolute crackers across the years, mate. So in terms of on Zoom, I haven't really. We had a footy jersey day today or a favourite T-shirt day. So all the kids got on with their favourite jerseys, and we had a bit of a chat about, someone had an Aaron Eagles jumper on, and there was a Mariners jersey and a favourite cartoon character. So it was pretty cool, mate, and just stuff like that. I know another year wore their sunnies and, pretty cool stuff. But, yeah, crackers, I've been a bit let down in the cracker department, I think. I might have to GM up next week and see how we go.
Yeah, I think there needs to be a joke off, mate. So you make sure you take some notes. How many Manly jerseys were in there, by the way?
There were a couple, but I turned the video off on them. Don't need to say that.
Mute.
Yeah.
Mate, anything I can do for you? Thanks heaps for your time. I'm running out of questions. Anything else that people out there, the parents especially, or kids, hopefully not too many kids are listening because I swear too much, but is there anything out there you'd like to say?
No, just we obviously as teachers rely on that home school relationship and with families and so on. And we're so lucky. I just wanted, if people are listening from the Kariong Mountains community, you're so lucky, I think, to have your students attend the school, not because of not being self-indulgent here, but it is the best school I've worked at, and the links with the community are so strong. You could say one thing and that nearly everyone in the community will hear it. Can be good and bad, but just don't be too hard on yourself. Get through this initial stage, and I promise you that as teachers, we're working out the best way to look after your kids, and hopefully in turn that helps you ease the stress on families out there as well. But just stay safe, stay healthy, and look after yourselves.
And reach out for help if you need it, because you guys
absolutely, check on a mate. Yeah, you know this, Cam. Check on a mate. Give that person you haven't heard from a call. Flick them a text message, anything like that, because it really is important. Some people are home alone. Some people have nothing else to do. That they might usually go to the pub, or they might usually go to soccer or footy or netball or dancing or whatever it is. Yeah, it's super important, buddy.
Yeah, no, all good, mate. Well, listen, thanks so much for your time. I think it was really important. We got someone from the education department on here to have a chat. Absolute legend, mate, and we'll catch up for a beer over Zoom and maybe a game of golf when we're allowed to do it again, eh?
Rightio, mate. Cheers, Cam. Love the Wolves jersey in the background, buddy.
Go the Wolves. Talk soon, bud.
All right.